Hi, students! Today we are going to learn one of the most important parts of English grammar, the verb. A verb is a word that shows an action, a condition, or a state of being. Every complete sentence in English usually needs a verb because the verb tells us what the subject does, what happens, or what the subject is. Without verbs, we cannot express actions, feelings, thoughts, or situations clearly. For example, in the sentence, "The student studies English," the word studies is the verb because it shows an action. In the sentence, "She is happy," the word is the verb because it shows a state of being. Verbs are used in every conversation, every story, every email, every lesson, and every piece of writing. Learning verbs well is one of the most important steps toward becoming fluent in English. Let us begin with action verbs. Action verbs describe something that a person, animal, or thing does. Examples of action verbs include run, walk, jump, eat, drink, write, read, speak, listen, study, work, play, drive, cook, sing, dance, swim, open, close, and build. For example, the children play football after school. In this sentence, play is the action verb. Another example is, my mother cooks dinner every evening. Here, cooks is the action verb. We use action verbs constantly in our daily lives because people are always doing things. At school, students study, read, write, listen, and learn. At work, employees work, communicate, organize, and create. At home, family members cook, clean, watch television, and relax. These actions are all expressed through verbs. Now let us look at the verb to be, which is one of the most important verbs in English. The forms of the verb to be include am, is, are, was, and were. This verb does not always show an action. Instead, it often describes a condition, identity, or state of being. For example, I am a student. She is a teacher. They are friends. The weather is hot today. We were happy yesterday. In these examples, the verb tells us what someone is or how someone feels. English learners use the verb to be every day when introducing themselves. For example, I am Kevin. I am from Cambodia. My sister is a doctor. We are members of the same club. Because it is so common, students should practice the verb to be regularly. Verbs are used to express time. This is called tense. The three main tenses are present, past, and future. The present tense describes actions happening now or actions that happen regularly. For example, I study English every day. She works at a bank. They play football on weekends. The past tense describes actions that already happened. For example, I studied English yesterday. She worked late last night. They played football last Saturday. The future tense describes actions that will happen later. For example, I will study English tomorrow. She will work next week. They will play football this evening. Understanding verb tenses helps students talk about time clearly and accurately. Let us practice verbs in the present tense. Imagine your daily routine. You might say, I wake up at 6 o'clock. I brush my teeth. I eat breakfast. I go to school. I study English. I return home. I do my homework. I watch television. I sleep at 10 o'clock. Notice that every sentence contains a verb. These verbs help us describe our daily activities. Learning common daily routine verbs is very useful for English learners because these words appear frequently in conversations. Verbs are also important when describing work and professional life. For example, the manager leads the team. The teacher explains the lesson. The engineer designs buildings. The doctor treats patients. The chef prepares food. The driver transports passengers. The police officer protects the community. Each profession has common verbs associated with it. By learning these verbs, students can describe jobs and careers more effectively. Another important group of verbs is called helping verbs or auxiliary verbs. Helping verbs work together with main verbs to create different meanings and tenses. Common helping verbs include do, does, did, have, has, had, will, shall, can, could, may, might, should, and must. For example, I do my homework every day. She does not like coffee. They did their project yesterday. We have completed the assignment. He will travel tomorrow. Helping verbs are essential because they help us ask questions, make negatives, and express different times and possibilities. For example, to ask questions, we often use helping verbs. Do you speak English? Does she work here? Did they arrive on time? These questions would not be correct without the helping verbs. In everyday conversations, people ask questions using helping verbs all the time. At school, a teacher may ask, "Did you finish your homework?" At work, a manager may ask, "Have you completed the report?" In a restaurant, a customer may ask, "Do you serve vegetarian food?" These examples show the importance of helping verbs in communication. Modal verbs are another useful type of verb. Modal verbs include can, could, may, might, should, would, must, and shall. These verbs express ability, possibility, permission, advice, or necessity. For example, I can speak English. You should practice every day. We must arrive on time. May I ask a question? They might visit tomorrow. Modal verbs are very common in both formal and informal English. At work, someone might say, "You should attend the meeting." In school, a student may ask, "Can I borrow your book?" These verbs help us communicate politely and effectively. Now let us discuss linking verbs. Linking verbs connect the subject to more information about the subject. Common linking verbs include be, become, seem, appear, feel, look, sound, taste, and smell. For example, the soup tastes delicious. She seems tired. The weather feels pleasant. The music sounds beautiful. In these examples, the verbs do not show actions. Instead, they connect the subject with descriptions. Linking verbs are useful when talking about feelings, appearances, and conditions. Students should also learn about regular and irregular verbs. Regular verbs form the past tense by adding ed. Examples include work/worked, play/played, clean/cleaned, and study/studied. For example, I worked yesterday. They played football. She cleaned the room. These verbs follow a predictable pattern. Irregular verbs, however, change form in different ways. Examples include go/went, eat/ate, see/saw, come/came, take/took, and write/wrote. For example, I went to school. She ate breakfast. We saw a movie. Because irregular verbs do not follow a simple pattern, students should memorize them through practice. Let us now practice verbs in real-life situations. Imagine you are at school. You may hear sentences such as, "The teacher teaches mathematics." The students answer questions. The principal welcomes visitors. The librarian organizes books. All of these sentences contain verbs that describe actions. At home you may hear, "My father repairs the car." "My mother prepares lunch." "My brother plays video games." "The baby sleeps peacefully." At work, people say, "The manager reviews reports." "The employees attend meetings." "The company develops new products." These examples show how verbs help us describe daily activities and responsibilities. Verbs are also essential when traveling. For example, I book a hotel. I pack my suitcase. I board the airplane. I visit famous places. I take photographs. I meet new people. These travel verbs are useful for anyone who wants to communicate while visiting another country. Students can practice by describing a trip using verbs. For example, last year I traveled to Thailand. I visited temples, ate local food, and met friendly people. Another excellent way to learn verbs is through storytelling. Consider this short story. One morning, a young boy woke up early. He washed his face, ate breakfast, and walked to school. He met his friends and studied hard. After school, he played football and returned home. In the evening, he finished his homework and slept peacefully. Notice how verbs such as woke, washed, ate, walked, met, studied, played, returned, finished, and slept make the story come alive. Without verbs, stories would have no movement or action. Students should practice speaking with verbs every day. Repeat these sentences aloud. I study English every evening. She works in an office. They play football after school. We watch movies on weekends. He drives carefully. The teacher explains the lesson clearly. The children laugh happily. My parents support me. I can improve my English. We will succeed through practice. These sentences contain common verbs that are useful in everyday life. English learners often make mistakes with verbs. For example, some students say, she go to school, instead of she goes to school. Others say, yesterday I go to the market, instead of yesterday I went to the market. Another common mistake is forgetting the verb completely, such as saying, he happy, instead of he is happy. To avoid these mistakes, students should practice complete sentences and pay attention to verb forms. One of the best ways to improve verb usage is by keeping a daily journal. Write a few sentences every day about what you do. For example, I wake up at 6 o'clock. I exercise for 30 minutes. I eat breakfast with my family. I go to work. I study English in the evening. This simple exercise helps students use verbs naturally and correctly. In conclusion, verbs are the heart of English sentences because they show actions, states, conditions, and events. We use verbs to describe what people do, how they feel, what they think, and what happens around them. By learning action verbs, the verb to be, helping verbs, modal verbs, linking verbs, regular verbs, and irregular verbs, students can greatly improve their English communication skills. Practice verbs every day in speaking, writing, reading, and listening. The more verbs you learn and use, the more confident and fluent you will become in English. Remember, every sentence needs a verb, and every conversation depends on verbs to communicate meaning clearly. Thank you for listening. Good luck!